Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another Bulletproof for BJJ podcast. I am JT.
I'm Joey. How you guys doing?
Welcome, guys. Today we will be talking about Joe Worthington getting his black belt.
Ooh.
Ooh. Tell us. It's the big day.
I wanted to wear it today, but it was still a little bit damp from washing it after the first class. I wore it on Monday night.
You wash your belt? Oh
I know.
My God. No, amazing. It's one of those things that it's such a long time coming. You know, I guess like many things, you tell yourself, whether it's buying a house, getting a job, getting your black belt, you tell yourself something in your mind, and then there's the reality of the experience. And I thought it'd be so good today because it has been a real journey. And for the best part, you guys out there, you've been listening, you've followed some of this journey to an extent and understanding it. I really wanted you to get into it, Joe.
Yeah, cool. There's been an amazing response from our followers. On Instagram, I put a post up with a few of my takeaways from it. And I guess by the time this episode's coming out, that would have been, 3 or 4 weeks ago.
Sure.
But there's been some really cool comments and stuff and people being like, oh man, that thing that you shared, that resonated with me. And, one guy was like, man, this feels like, I love the podcast and this feels like a win for all of us. I'm like, bro, that's the coolest shit I've ever heard.
That's so nice.
So I'm really, chuffed about all that. I guess the main thing that really stood out to me was that leading up to getting it, because obviously I had been anticipating it for a long time.
Yes.
Adam and I, my coach Adam, we'd been speaking about it over the years. He had told me what he wanted from me as a brown belt before he would give me a black belt. Mm-hmm. And that was very cool. I'd never had a coach that was open about that kind of communication.
Yes.
They would never have, you never have that dialogue with your coach. It's like, you don't speak about it.
It's a mystery.
Yeah. And if you ask,
how dare you bring it up?
You reset.
That's another year, 2 years.
Yeah. Whereas he was like, dude, I want to see these things from you. I think you should be fixing this up in terms of your game. I want to see you compete once at brown belt, all these things. So in any case, I was thinking, man, when it happens, I'm gonna be fucking stoked, And I'm like, dude, I'm gonna get up and be like, yeah, sick, and I was thinking, whatever the celebration is, like that day or that night, I'm like, I'm gonna wear my black belt to the pub. I'm gonna wear it, I'm gonna just be a bit of a dick about it.
Why not? Whatever.
Yeah, and then I got it, and that was the last thing I felt like.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
How interesting.
I was like, I became really somber. And I like at the time, like when, Adam tried to keep it as a surprise, and obviously JT was there, right?
Yeah, I was there, and I
there.
don't usually come to like a Saturday open mat. And also we were trying to get the timing right with your partner, Lisa, right?
Yeah.
And it was such a bad cover because she'd showed up. Obviously she didn't want to show up late and miss the opportunity to witness it, right? But then you're there and she's like there with your son and Hattie and you're like, What are you doing here? Just in the area. It's like, yeah, you're not in the area.
Just cruising by. Yeah. Well, her parents live in the east.
Oh,
She's like, we're just going to mum. She told me before I was going to train that she was going to visit her parents.
Oh, good cover.
And I was like, yeah, really good cover. Then she told me, like, what are you doing here? And she's like, we're on our way to mum and dad's. We're driving past. And I was like, feasible. But bullshit.
Yeah. And I mean, they were giving out a few other belts, right? And I'd spoken to Adam. We'd worked really hard to not give the game away.
Right.
Yeah. And it's, I think, and speaking to another black belt, Sammy Backy from Gracie Bankstown, shout out. He had heard from a guy he didn't even know, the day before he got his black belt, some random guy came up and said, hey man, you get your black belt tomorrow. How do you feel? He was like, what? And it ruined it.
Took the wind out of the sail.
Yeah, because they really were trying to build it up as this really nice reward and surprise.
Yeah.
And you came off pretty low key, I got to say,
dude. So we're there, and I was expecting it, and in short, and we're there, and Ad's handing out the other belts, and I'm genuinely excited for the other guys getting graded and stuff, and then he starts talking about him receiving his first degree, which was his segue into giving me a black belt. That was his plan all along. So he's talking about he just got his first degree, and and I'm sitting there, and I remember, and everything was like Ads wouldn't look at me the whole time,
right? And
I'm like, he's not looking at me, I'm like, fuck. And he started talking about something relevant to his black belt, about how significant it was for him, And I started to get emotional, and I had to look down because I felt an urge to cry.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh shit, I'm like getting a little bit overwhelmed right now. And then he's like, yeah, and then today I'm giving Joey his black belt. And then everyone's like, yeah. And I was like, and I didn't feel like crying anymore. Like that came and went really quickly.
Sure.
But I just instantly felt kind of like deflated.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I felt like not overwhelmed. It was like a feeling of heaviness and kind of, and I think the best word I can find for it is somber. Right. Or very somber. And I went up and, ties it around and whatever. And then he's like, man, say some words. And I remember like standing there in front of all you guys, about to say something. And I got no problem coming up with some shit to say. I've thought about it many times, right, over the years. But I was tired. And it was, and I'm still trying to figure out what was going on. Because you think like I said, my expectation was that I'd be like super pumped.
Life
and like,
achievement.
Yeah.
Unlocked.
Suck a dick. I got a black belt, But I was the opposite. Paulie, like that one. I was the opposite. And, and that was very interesting to me. And I wrote about that on the post because every time you see someone get a black belt, they write on their social media, very honored, humbled, grateful. Then, the next chapter begins. And I'm always like, man, like, give it a bit of hype. Like, you got your fucking black belt. Like, be excited. Like, it's not all about from here on.
Yeah.
It's like, no. For a moment, you can celebrate this sick fucking milestone.
That's a great achievement.
And like, whatever. Next time, tomorrow, you start worrying about the future.
But in the moment.
Yeah. But I realized in that moment that I'm like, there's some kind of heaviness that comes with this rank. Or at least in my mind.
Yeah. No, I agree. And heavy is the head that holds the crown in a way.
Great. Yeah, that's right. And so, so that was very interesting for me. And I felt like for the rest of the day, and we had some drinks and stuff and some food. We had a gathering at one of our teammates' houses. Alex, what a fucking legend.
Yeah, what a legend.
Lent his house to the whole team.
Beautiful.
And I was just like chilling. I was thinking like, I'm going to get fucked up. Like when I get my, I'm going to be getting loose that night, And I was like so far from it.
Yeah.
In any case, it has morphed over the recent days.
Yes.
And it's become, like when I put my belt on Monday night to train, I was like, sick. Like, this is exciting. And people commenting, oh, yeah, very cool. So I have, it's been it's not an instant sort of thing. It's like it takes time to unfold and for me to settle into the feeling of it.
Yes.
And the excitement is there.
Yeah.
And the gratitude and all those things.
Yes.
But the brash, arrogant dick that I intended to be hasn't come out yet.
Yet.
Let's see.
Give it a chance.
Does any of that resonate with you when you got yours?
I think there was a degree of relief when I got my black belt. I guess I was on my brown for a little while. I think it was on my purple belt longest. But I think the difference was I got to grade at Absolute MMA in the city. So there was people there from St Kilda, from South Yarra, St Kilda gym, as well as the city. And I originally had come to Absolute at the city gym and then trained with Lockie at South Yarra and whatever. The interesting thing about it was huge. There's easily 150 plus 200 people there.
Wow.
Not everyone can fit. Also, we got bashed. So I was rolling for 2.5, almost 3 hours.
Oh, wow.
And there was a moment where actually the people who rolled me most savagely were my students. And they actually injured me a bit.
Wow.
I was like, oh my God, I've raised true killers. They were merciless. I think about 2 hours in, I kind of popped my knee. And then I got very badly stacked and really strained my lower back, and I couldn't really play guard after that. And so it's this process, and some of you may have experienced this if you have that Shark Tank grading, which is, you spend a certain amount of time just doing continuous rounds. And you hit a point of survival where your jiu-jitsu kind of goes to crap, and then you're just hanging in there. You're getting submitted, you're getting beat up.
It's almost the true jiu-jitsu at that point.
Yeah, because you have no energy. It's got to be super efficient and just try not to get submitted. Fortunately enough, I was able to play possum most rounds and then just come out with a killer sub at the end of most rounds. People are like, God, what's going on with this guy?
What's possum?
I'm dead. I'm not dead. Yeah, pretty much attack and run away. But the funny thing was, with about 20 minutes to go, Thiago was like, okay, guys, little break, get water. I was like, what? there's water breaks? Like, yeah, every 40 minutes there's a water break. I was like, since when? I've been doing this for 2 hours and 40 minutes. I ain't had a water break. Anyway, I was like, fuck it, let's keep going, But fortunately for me, there were probably 3 or 4 guys who definitely would have liked to mess me up getting their brown belts that day.
So they were busy getting fucked up.
They were busy getting ridden as well. Like Crazy Legs is one of those guys. Shout out Crazy Legs. Simon Carson. And then big guy Shane, who's got like this devil tattoo on his chest.
Ooh.
Like a devil's skull in the middle. He's a hard man. He looks like Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Right on.
And super jacked. So I was like very thankful they were all grading.
Yeah.
Because I know they would have come for me. But everyone else came for me. Anyway, all I say is the thing about it was because everybody graded, I was sitting there for a really long time and I was exhausted and just spent. Grade all the blues, grade all the purples, grade all the browns. And then finally they come to the black belt, right? And it was a great thing. I got to get my black belt with a few other people and it was a celebration at the end. But all I can remember is this overwhelming sense of relief. It was definitely some achievement in there and I did feel quite emotional because I had a speech written, like I knew it was coming and I was kind of preparing myself for the jail attack of so many people. But then I wanted to just share with everybody that was like, you just don't know how long this is going to take. And you've spoken on this and I know you're going to speak to this next, Joey, which is it's not linear. Some people who started after you get there before you, and then other people, they're still on their purple belt and you're a black belt now. And they're looking at you like, dang, you're a black belt?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you kind of get the regrets. And so it is a mixed feeling. You get a lot of adulation and support from the team, but you also cop a little bit of jealousy too. There's a couple people like, oh, you got your black belt. I mean, I didn't have anyone say it to me, but I had a couple people roll me like that.
Ah, right.
Like, oh, you're a black belt, prove it. Like, oh, you're a black belt. Like there's a target on you now.
Yeah.
Which is fine because I just took it as a free pass to no excuses. I'm black belt now. I'm smashing you. But no, I'd say on the day, as an experience, people you grade with, stuff like that, overwhelming sense of relief and obviously gratitude.
That's an interesting contrast. Yeah, everyone's really excited for you.
Yeah.
And all the guys and the girls, like everyone at the team's like, fuck yeah, sick, so stoked for you, man. Congratulations. And you're not, I wasn't feeling on that level. So I'm like, oh man, thank you so much. Like, thank you. Like, and I was aware of that and I'm like, oh, I don't want to look like I'm
kill the vibe.
Super grateful right now, super appreciative. I'm just going through something. I'm not sure what it is, you know? That is an interesting contrast. Yeah, I don't remember feeling that way with any of my other belts.
Okay.
All I remember, like from blue to brown, was just excitement.
Yes.
Like, fucking sick, got it. Stoked. How good's this kind of thing?
Yes.
Different feeling with the black.
Definitely.
But I'm also in a different place. I don't think I'm a different person to what I was when I got those belts. So I don't necessarily think it's relevant to the belt. Could just be me.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it is different for each individual depending on how they're coming at jiu-jitsu. Like someone who's a competitor or someone who's been doing it for 25 years or anything like that. And the interesting thing to me is like, I'm just going to segue slightly. Take a guy like Kit Dale. He reckons he got his black belt in like a very short amount of time. 4 years. I think it was more like 6 or whatever it was. But then I look at someone like Lachlan Giles. It took him 14 years to get his black belt. And in my opinion, he's a far deeper black belt. Even though Kit Dale, respect to him, he achieved a lot earlier in his competitive career, he now almost doesn't do jiu-jitsu really. Whereas Lockie is so deep in the culture, in the teaching, it is absolutely his life.
Yeah.
100%. And having trained with both those guys and rolled with both those guys and experiencing what they're like at jiu-jitsu, Kit wants to talk crypto and putting money in foreign offshore accounts. Whereas you cannot stop Lachlan talking about jiu-jitsu at any point of the day. And I love it. I think it's great because if you admire black belts, right? You look up to them. Like think about let's just reference like who's the baddest, but who's a black belt who you're like, man, I'll be like that guy. He's a killer. Is there anyone like that?
It's a good question.
Or a higher belt, let's say. It wouldn't necessarily have to be a black belt.
You're talking like in terms of like the famous kind of...
It doesn't have to be famous. You could just be someone you're like, dang, they're kicking everyone's butt. I want to be like that.
I like Marigali.
Yeah.
I look at his, I'm like, fuck yeah, he's a savage.
He is. Yeah.
I mean, I look at no-gi guys and I feel a bit of that, but I'm also like, no-gi seems kind of different now.
It does.
They're almost like a different sport. Yeah, I don't have a lot of that kind of
Jiu-jitsu heroes.
No. You?
Or was there anyone you ever trained with when you were like a blue and you saw this guy as a brown belt who was just destroying people and you were like, God, that's what brown belt's about.
Yeah, well, I think back to then it was almost every brown belt.
Right.
You know, when I was a white or blue, it was just like, oh, look at these brown belts. These guys are killers.
Yeah.
And they, you know, I've heard people say this before, but like a competitive brown belt's almost like the scariest of all the jiu-jitsu belts.
Yeah, frightened.
Because they're trying to prove
they
constantly.
want that black belt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're usually, you know, generally of that age. Whereas by the time you get to black belt, often, you know, unless you're fucking the new generation,
Mika Galvan.
Galvans and stuff, you're like 18.
Yeah.
But, you know, you're generally then a little bit older and not so much trying to compete. And I mean, I said that to the guys. I'm like, guys, I got my black belt. I don't give a fuck anymore. Tap me out, whatever. I got nothing to prove.
Nah, I'm done.
It's done.
Tick it off. Yeah. And I think, you know, I mentioned it this morning within the context of the Bulletproof small group. And I was saying, you know, like all these guys want black belts. And, you know, I probably shouldn't generalize. But like, so for example, Ray is very new in the journey. It's not even probably within her sphere of reference as a you know, a white belt. She's 1 or 2 stripes to go, I'm getting my black belt. You know, like as a thinking process, she's just like, how do I just even get my head around
get
this?
a stripe? Yeah.
Yeah, and what's my next stripe? But that said,
I was the same.
Okay.
When I was, you know, I never had a long-term view of it. It was always just like, even at white belt, I never remember being like, I got to get to that next, or I'm getting to that next belt. It was always just like, I don't know. Yeah, always just short term.
Okay. When I first started, I always thought the quicker you got it, the better you were.
Yeah.
I didn't think, you know, that's kind of an immature approach, but that's what I thought. I was like, man, if you get your blue belt in a year, you're a gun. And
well,
you know, if you, the sooner you get to black belt, then the sooner you're a black belt world champion.
Yeah.
This kind of thinking. And then
there's some kind of logic there.
Sort of. But then I realized, like, meeting more high level guys, like once you get to black belt, it's like, now you're in the world of all these black belts.
Yeah.
And even though people get stripes, you might have to roll someone who's been a black belt for 15 years and they are a hard human.
Yeah.
And you're like just a new, like, oh, look at me, I got my black belt. It's like, nah. Megaton Diaz is going to...
It's true. It's a deep, deep pool.
It's a deep pool.
Because you think, I mean, and you always have that feeling when you're competing, for anyone that's competed, you always have that feeling where you're like, oh, but I'm like a fresh blue belt and I'm going in against people that might have had their blue belt for like 5 years.
Yeah.
You always have that feeling. It's like, that's just what the game is.
Precisely.
You know, but that only expands when you're at black belt, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's such a broad thing. But I guess the great thing about it is, and you know, people talk about this, is that the dedication it takes requires you to overcome a lot of things: personal, financial, physical, injuries, everything, to stay in the game. And really, staying in the game is, they talk about a lot in business, that you've just got to, you know, it's the last one standing. All these businesses fall, but if you can find a way to keep your business going, and when the chips fall where they lay, then maybe you're the last one in the field, and then that enables you to have great success. But with jiu-jitsu, as much as people fall off, there's always new people jumping in, and you've got to just stay your path, however you make it happen. Breakups, moving house, businesses fail, but you've got this thing in your life, which is jiu-jitsu, and it's like, how do you stay on that path? And I guess us as individuals, even though we have many things in common, that was a very different path. So, and you've talked about this a little bit, Joe, you did have time off because you were exploring other things.
Yeah, I mean, I was over jiu-jitsu. I got my brown belt and I was at the end of my tether at that point.
Done.
And, you know, it came, I mean, interesting shit, you know, like I look back, basically from blue, like through blue and purple, I competed a lot. Yep. And I put a lot of pressure on myself. And I also believe that my coach at the time, the team I was in, there was just a lot of pressure there to compete. And it was like, fucking compete, train. And it was like show up at training every night. Like, and so I did it. And I look back and I'm like, I did so much of that out of a feeling of obligation.
Yes.
And eventually it just took a toll where I was like, I'm not enjoying this anymore. It's stressful. I remember being like, the purple belt enforcer. I remember having this visitor come to the gym one night.
No.
He was another purple belt. My coach was like, roll him first.
Get him.
And the guy had a bit of attitude about him. But I remember we had this fucking roll that was so intense.
War.
And I got the dude, right? I took him down, I subbed him, whatever. But I remember like leaving class that night and I'm like, man, I don't need this stress in my life.
I didn't want that.
I'm just coming to like stay fit and like get better. And I'm like, I don't want to have this emotional fucking, it's not where I'm at right now.
You don't want to be your instructor's pit bull.
That's right.
Right.
So, and there was stuff going on in the academy. The coach had lost the passion for it. We weren't really getting coached anymore. We were just showing up doing the same shit. Anyway, it coincided with me opening our first gym,
Yes.
Younger Brothers. And so it was like, dude, I'm fucking taking a break. And, same time, coach was like, hey, I'm shutting the gym down. Heart's not in it, got some other shit to attend to. So I took that and was like a couple of years off. And it was, really like many things played out, but it was really only until you introduced me to Adam.
Yeah.
Adam and I started hanging out a bit, and then he opened his gym in Sydney.
Beautiful.
Alliance Jiu-Jitsu, where I was like, you know what, man? I'm keen to get back into it. He asked me, I was on their podcast yesterday, Beyond Jiu-Jitsu. If you haven't listened, check them out.
Shout out
to the boys.
Ooh.
And he was like, what was it that got you back in? And I said, dude, it was partly me being painted into a bit of a corner here at Jungle Brothers where we were teaching jiu-jitsu now.
Right.
And I was coaching it, and I'm like, well, there's people coming in and I'm sharing it with them and I'm helping them get better. So there's a part of me that wants to stay in it for that. We also had all of our jiu-jitsu buddies coming in to train because they're all fucking broken. So that, hey man.
Doing Bulletproof.
Yeah. And so it was like, I was like, all right, there's a thing there. I'm in the community. But also like Adam's passion for it.
Yes.
And he was just so energetic about it. And I'm like, wow, this is refreshing to be around. I hadn't really experienced that for a long time. And then also for me, somewhere in my mind, I'm like, well, I'm a brown belt. Like it kind of sucked to never get to black belt.
Yes.
But I didn't feel that initially. But after a few years, whatever, I was like, it's just the next belt. Come on, let's go. So in any case, that got me back in. And that was really, that sort of reignited the whole jiu-jitsu froth for me.
Yeah, that's nice. And when you think about that, do you think that time off might have helped in a way? Because sometimes people just grind until they're so injured or incapacitated, it's almost not even attainable. Do you think that, and this is like maybe you couldn't say for sure, but do you think having had that time off, focusing on movement, doing all your other physical culture and physical development stuff enabled you to now be a very like mobile and strong human to now jump back on the journey and push through and still be a black belt without being a crippled old man? Do you know what I mean?
Like, I do know what you're getting at. I think yes and no.
Okay.
Because I tend to feel like no matter where like I'm in good shape and all of that, all of my training outside of jiu-jitsu has, helped me be in good shape. But it's also relative because I copped a lot of damage too, right?
True.
My knee doesn't work properly at the anymore, and like little things like that. So I think that it's just relative to like no one gets out alive.
Yeah, exactly.
You cop damage.
You do
to get there, and your baseline is always your baseline. And so I think had I not have been in that, had I not have gone on that like strength and movement journey, that wouldn't have affected my desire to get back into jiu-jitsu necessarily.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And maybe I'd just be a little bit stiffer and not quite as strong and
Yeah.
Now it's still with a couple of injuries.
Sure.
Do you know what I mean? It wasn't like I was like, oh yeah, no, I'm good now. I'm prepped. Let's go.
No.
It was more just like that kind of internal fire.
Yeah. No, and that means a lot. And I think the difficulty for a lot of people is they get, we all get the bug, right? We just go, how good is this? I just want to know more. I've just got to do more. And you just shape your life around it. And then it starts to take its toll. You do get sore fingers. Your back does get jacked up. You get all these problems. And then you start to lose your normal function. You're like, oh, but when I'm at jits and I'm full of adrenaline, I'm good to go.
Yeah.
But man, getting in and out of my car is hard.
Yeah.
Picking up my kid is hard. Chasing, I can't run. I can't chase my 3-year-old, stop my kid from running under a car or something. Like, you have these thoughts and you're like, oh my goodness, what am I doing?
Yeah.
And these are some very real world consequences that we all make the sacrifice for because we love jiu-jitsu. I guess I had a lot of time off through injury. Like I have had plenty of injuries, and I would say out of like 14 years, like I'm coming up on 14 years now, I would have missed 2.5 years to injury. Like 3 months off here, 6 months off there, ribs, knees, ligaments, neck, shoulder, whatever. And I always think to myself, like, man, how much better could I be at jiu-jitsu if I had that time not sitting on the couch or not in physio or whatever. But the truth is, it gave me time to also miss jiu-jitsu a little bit. Like where I haven't done it for 3 months. I'm like, man, it'd be so good, you know, it's just watching other people like, I got to get back, you know, I want to get back. I think it sounds strange, but I learned a lot from my injuries and the time off I had. Even though I missed definite competitive time in my athletic career, it still allowed me to keep passion for jiu-jitsu. I didn't OD.
Yeah, that makes sense for sure. And I definitely like just the time off when I was away from jiu-jitsu for sure gave me an opportunity to, you know, to let that kind of desire come back. I think really absence makes the heart grow fonder, you know, it really does. And, you know, but if I look at it sort of objectively, I think, well, say I hadn't met Adam.
Sure.
And, you know, say we didn't teach jiu-jitsu here at Jungle Brothers, potentially I never would have gone back to it.
Yeah.
You know, and there was no part of me that was, I didn't really care. I'm like, brown belt's fucking sick.
That's
like,
a great achievement.
Yeah, it's a way high, you know, like I'm an exceptional individual.
Yes.
Because of this rank.
Yes.
It was really only because, you know, a few factors sort of came together that I decided, oh no, I want to go for the black belt now. I'm keen, you know. So I really think that, like when I look at other people's jiu-jitsu journey and some of the conversations I've had with folks through the social media and stuff, is like, yeah, people are like, oh man, like I've taken a big break at blue belt and I, you know, that thing you said about heaps of time off, whatever. And I'm like, it doesn't matter if you don't go back.
Yeah.
Like, no one says you have to keep going.
No.
You know, and it's like, whatever, 3 months of jiu-jitsu experience, that's great.
Yeah, it's
that's
better
all
than
you ever
none.
get. Yeah. I don't have any, as much as I'm hyper passionate about it, I'm also very real about it. And like, mate, if you're not enjoying it and the trade-off, because there is always a trade-off.
There's a cost.
Trade-off does not seem worthwhile. Like, don't make it, you know? But it's also a really cool thing to kind of push through and sacrifice a bit and then be rewarded for that.
Definitely.
You know?
Definitely. And I think when we circle back around to this idea of getting your black belt, do you sense, like, even though you said previously that you would be happy with a brown belt, now having achieved your black belt, is there a sense of closure there? You feel like I did that?
Yes, very much so.
Right.
Yeah. People talking about, the next chapter begins now. And I'm like, motherfucker, this book is closed.
Peace out.
Yeah. I'm like, we're good. There is a part of me that's like, what? I got nothing to prove now.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, the real journey begins, whatever, you know. But I mean, I get it. If you're 22 and you get your black belt and you're competing, yeah, it's a new chapter now.
Sure.
You know, and obviously people are going to behave differently, you know, try and kick my ass and shit, probably a little bit harder.
Yeah. But you've got the 007 license to kill.
Well,
you're a black belt. That's not an entitlement thing. You're rolling with a black belt, bro. Like you're gonna get it. You want this smoke? It's coming. But
yeah, no, of course, you know, I'm really glad I did it. I'm really glad that all those things came together, and I was like, I want to do this again, because you know that's you know that's a huge takeaway from the whole thing that I've spoken about is like, if you can meet someone and or be around people that can, you know, and you're part of this, right? You know,
Well, if I hadn't gone to Brazil, met Adam, said to Adam, hey man, we should open a gym in Sydney together. Didn't work out. That's fine. But he did fortunately move to Sydney. And I said to him, go train with Joe. Because he's like, who do I train with? I'm like, you got to go train with Joe, man. And then it's always the way. I'm always the third wheel. It's happened so many times in my life.
They're like, oh, is JT coming? Is he? Oh, okay.
Oh, awkward. You know, I'm a real good matchmaker. I'll see a friend. I'll have another friend. I reckon they'd be good mates. And then eventually they're besties. And I'm just like the ugly cousin.
Friends, what are you guys doing?
Hey,
what's going on?
Can I play too? And it's cool. I love seeing that because it's just so random that it has worked out the way it has. That and obviously Adam's passion is so great that it could like motivate you and get you back on board.
Yeah.
Because it actually, it serves us because here we are doing Bulletproof, and it's an amazing thing.
Finally, you will put some respect on my name.
You put some respect on my name. Yeah, well, it's like now I'm not going to roll you 70% anymore. It's going to be,
Who said we're rolling again, bro? I told you this book is closed.
All right. You get that one sub and I'm... No, that's fair play, man. No, and true, like, I have always felt you're a black belt. I have always given you that respect. Not vocally, not on the podcast, but in my heart, I'm like, no, you got to...
Do you guys hear that shit?
Credit where credit due. I do remember, I will throw it back. The first time we ever rolled was one of the most frustrating rolls of my life at the dojo.
At Blue Belt, were we?
Blue Belt. Yeah, it was one of the first times we met. I couldn't sweep him. I couldn't tap him. It was war. And I just got so frustrated. I'm like, the guy's strong and flexible. And it was a conniption for me, which I don't usually experience, which is just like, I'm usually a bit stronger or a bit more flexible than someone. And Joe was not the guy. I was like, far out. Is this like fighting myself? Is this like the end level at, where you've got to, you're a character in the video game and then the big boss is you, but flashing in like fluoro colors.
Yeah, can go invisible sometimes.
Float over here.
Yeah.
And it was just one of those things that I just knew in that moment, like, God, this guy's like a real match for me. And even though we have different styles, I have always given you that respect, Joe.
I appreciate it.
So I'm happy to admit that now. You're wearing the strap. You're welcome.
My guy, I've waited a long time for this. Some things are more valuable than a black belt. Feelings mutual, right? Like that, and that's for folks listening, it's what it's like when you meet someone who really is kind of your match, like someone who has the same tools as you. It's often like, fucking hell, like this is so hard to deal with because you're used to just doing what you do, but they do what you do, and it's like it forces you to find new ways, doesn't it?
True.
Good thing to have, as frustrating as it can be. But yeah, I think like, on that, very fortunate to have had all of those things kind of collude in order for me to get the passion back. If those things hadn't happened, I had been at the same gym, I had been with a coach that I didn't really feel had the love for it, wasn't invested in my development, me not really enjoying it. Say the gym stayed open and I was like, I'm going to grit this out and get to black belt, and gave that place another 4 or 5 years or whatever. Yeah, maybe there would be, maybe in that sacrifice, there's also something great that comes from it, because there's something great in any sacrifice.
Sure.
However, that would have been a shit 4 years.
Yes.
And I look at that and I think, I see people in jiu-jitsu who are enduring shit relationships with their coach or their academy that they're at.
Yep.
They don't align with the values.
They're not getting acknowledged.
Yeah.
They're not getting help.
The coach has kind of changed, from what it was. And I'm just like, man, life's too short to be around those people. And the value of these colored belts means so much to us that we will fucking eat shit sandwiches for a long time.
Yes.
To get to that milestone. And I do get it. It's like, well, you're halfway there, stick it out for another 12, 18 months, but when I see people who are like enslaved to a shit relationship because of that promotion that's on the horizon, it's a little bit depressing.
Sure.
Because we know there are great gyms out there and great coaches who care about every person that walks in their door.
Definitely.
And they will, and the experience that you can have can be like night and day compared to what it is that you're having. And it's like, you don't have to go through this shit.
Yeah.
It can be different.
It can.
And I accepted a bit of that when I came back to train with Adam, where it was like, I'm starting again at brown belt. It's like whatever, the last few years or whatever, kind of, I had a couple of years of training at Gracie and stuff. And I'm like, all of that really means nothing. But at the heart of it, it didn't matter at all, because I'm like, this is an enjoyable experience.
Right.
I don't mind how long this takes.
And so in summary, if we're thinking about people out there who may be a long time on a belt, or maybe right now, speaking to you guys, you've taken a break, you're a bit stuck. What would you say to, like, what would be your piece of passing wisdom for them?
Couple things. One would be to start a dialogue with your coach about where you're at in your head.
Yep.
And if you don't have a coach that you can talk to like this, that raises a red flag. Maybe go find a new coach. But go to them and say, man, I'm feeling a bit stuck. I really want to get to, the next belt or whatever, get my second stripe, whatever it is. I'm not feeling like I'm developing. Can you help me? What do you think I should do? And I'm asking you as my coach, because a coach should be able to say to you, man, yeah, here's what I need to see from you. This is why I think if you can fix these things and show me this, they can set your expectations. Then you can go, okay, cool. Coach has told me what they need. I go and apply myself to that and I'm good. And, and again, I've spoken to people who have tried to have that conversation and their coach has given them some bullshit. And it's like, okay, your coach is a fuckwit.
Yep.
They don't care about you. It's gotten personal, whatever. So start that dialogue with your coach. Second thing would be don't compare yourself to what your counterparts are doing. And I've spoken about before, I've seen so many people who I was once ahead of or even with who just fucking, I've seen people get their black belt in the time that it took me in my brown belt. They go from white to black while I still have my brown belt.
Wow.
And I think just focusing on that is just a really depressing thing.
Yes.
And you need to be able to separate what someone else is having in their journey from yours and be able to be happy for them and go, that's so fucking cool. Yeah. But understand that it has absolutely no bearing or reflection on what you're doing.
Yes.
Your journey is your own. And it's like what we talk about, we're at black belt. It's not like you get to a black belt comp and you say to your opponent, how long you been a black belt for? And you judge based on that. Yeah. You're just here we are, we're both black belts.
That's right.
Whereas when you're a white belt, it's all about how many months you've been training. How many months did it take you to get
3 months, 5 days, 2 hours, bro.
Yeah, that's right. This is my 117th training session. It's none of that shit matters.
Nah.
So just focus on what you're doing and talk to your coach, have that conversation. I really think that's the key for me.
Cool.
You got anything to add to that?
No, not really. I feel like I got a black belt in Taekwondo, but I got that reasonably quickly, 4 years. And I was only a kid. I was 14 when I got a black belt. I think there's some validity in jiu-jitsu in not giving black belts below a certain age,
You got to be 18, don't you?
I think so. The rules might have shifted on that. But essentially, I had learned some hard lessons from doing a traditional martial art. So when I came to jiu-jitsu, I'd already had a lot of disciplining and focusing and and overcoming bullshit to think clearly. And I think not repeating your mistakes, that's the best thing you can do. It doesn't matter what level you're at. As long as you're making new mistakes, which is indicative of learning, that is key. If you just keep coming with the same, this always happens, or I always struggle against that kind of a dude, then it means that you haven't answered the question. And jiu-jitsu is this endless sea of questions. So it's being able to answer the question and find new questions. If you're doing that, then you're on the learning journey. You will get there eventually. That's
a really good point. Man, to give people a practical example of that, I remember one of my counterparts, a guy called Aaron Bean.
Yep.
A fucking savage.
Is this the guy you reckon stronger than me?
Yes. No, stronger than me. I didn't say stronger than you.
I think you might have said he's the strongest guy you ever rolled.
I did say that.
That's fine. I accept.
So he's where is he?
Single tier.
This guy's a fucking savage. And he, and we were when he started, I was ahead of him. Right. I think I was a blue belt, he was a white belt, but he goes blue very quickly. And then strange fucking turn of events. We were both purple belts. And then one night when I was working at the gym, coach gave him his black belt.
What?
He calls me after training, goes, bro, Dan gave me my black belt tonight. I'm like, what? He's I'm like, why? He's like, dude, I don't know. I don't know what to think about it.
Whoa.
And no one ever found, the thing was, he could fuck up most black belts that coming through the gym.
Sure.
But you're why would you do that to someone? Why would you not just give them the next belt and run that, as per standards of IBJJF, whatever? Just felt really weird. I think it's because Dan wanted a black belt coach and he wanted to get the fuck out.
Very convenient.
But in any case, we would roll together and we would just start, and I would just step into his guard and give him grips and then start the roll.
Right.
And he would fuck me up every time, repeatedly. And it took many years for me to stop training, take a break, go back to train with Adam, where Adam's stop letting me initiate my game. Like when we slap hands, it starts then. Like if you let me get my favorite guard on you and my best grips,
you're in trouble.
I'm probably going to sweep you or submit you. And I was like, man, I did that for like 2 years with Bean, where I just step into his De La Riva, let him get grips, and it's this relaxed thing, you know? Okay, now we start. And I'm like, one, why did I not ever think about that and change it and ask my coach, what do I need to do here?
Yeah.
But two, why did my coach not ever say,
tell me
dude,
that.
I keep seeing you make this stupid fucking mistake.
Yeah.
And you're a purple belt. Stop making. So that kind of speaks to my 2 points. Like if you find that shit's happening where you're making the same mistake, to your point, it's like, it's either you or it's your coach, but it could be both. And like investigate that shit. That's the key.
It is a bit of both. Well, that's awesome, man. I think there's a lot in that. Congratulations again.
Thank you so much. It was a true honor, and I gotta thank you, man. You gave me like a beautiful gift, a stunning gift. JT gave me a handmade chef's knife, crafted by a friend of ours, Cam Elder.
Shout out
to the man.
Sacred Blades. If you're all on Instagram at @sacred_blades, they are living pieces of art.
They're unbelievable, and he's a black belt himself.
He is a black belt,
and JT had him make this beautiful custom knife for me, which was a spectacular gift. And you said some really nice words, which I didn't get to thank you for. That meant a lot to me.
My great pleasure. I think it is one of those things that you always want to see people acknowledged. I believe that. It doesn't matter what level it is. And when people are not properly acknowledged, that gets me. So I was so happy to see you properly acknowledged, bro.
Very cool.
But what I want to say, guys, is we get on here and we talk a lot of different stuff. But the important thing for us is speaking to you guys. And we would love to speak more about what you want to talk about. We have our plan. We sit down. We meet every week and we talk about, we plan out all the things we're going to talk about. But we do have our online voicemail. And we would
leave us a voicemail,
mate. Just say what's up. It doesn't have to be a question,
and get featured on the show.
Exactly, and then also let us know who you are, because as nice as it is to be anonymous, we also want to acknowledge you. So please go to bulletproof4bjj.com and go down the podcast section. There'll be a red button you can click and record. Leave us a message. Ask us a question. Whatever you want. We love to hear from you.
Yeah, anything about your journey, we'll feature it on the show and we'll even answer the question.
Yes, indeed.
Thank you, guys.
My guy.